finally, it has arrived. Dr. Stone anime had just came out. This is my first impression of it, guys. And I have to say, off the bat, the art, the animation, the fluidity, everything about it is, as much as Crunchyroll was hyping this up, the hype level did live up to it. Now, I want to give a quick disclaimer before I get into the actual review. If you don't like a lot of explanation in your series, and you don't like adventure series, or you don't really like science that much, and you more of a hardcore fantasy or battle-based type of person, then Dr. Stone most likely won't be for you, because it's really not about battles. There's a couple of scraps here and there, but it's not really about that. So I just want to give that disclaimer, because I know there's going to be a lot of battle-heavy people like Dragon Ball Z fans, Naruto fans, One Piece fans, Fairy Tail, Bleach, and all those that are going to expect to see this anime that's been hyped up so much and thinking that it's a fighting anime, when in reality it's just an adventure science series. So, but now that that's the disclaimer out the way, Dr. Stone is extremely great. It starts off with Taiju, one of our main three casts, and he busts into his science lab in his high school, and he talks to his best friend Senku, who's another main cast character of the three, and he was like, I'm gonna confess my love to Yuzuraya, which is the girl that he likes, and she's their main cast. And Senku was like, yeah, okay, cool, you have my best wishes. And he was like, really? Thanks. And he was like, but just in case if you fail, here's this love potion. And Taiju looked at the love potion. He was like, I don't need this. And he dumped it out and he threw it away and he left. And all the other scientists was making fun of him and was like, wow, your friend is pretty dull, isn't he? He should have took that love potion. He has no chance with that girl. And Senku was like, that's not really a love potion. I faked it. That was just salt water. And they were like, why would you do that? And he's like, because there was a 10,000% chance that he was not going to take it and do that. And I know him very well. So, and then we have him outside Taiju, and we see Yuzuraya. She's outside and she sees a tree that's like, the twig is like kind of damaged. So she takes off her like scarf and she ties it up to fix it. And while they talking, he's trying to confess his love to her, but he gets kind of like stuck, like it's hard for him. And he starts to calm down and think about happy thoughts and things with, advice that Senku had given him in the past. And when he finally was able to speak up to Yuzuraya, something interesting happens. A green light flashes in the sky and it covers the whole earth. And basically every living human and birds got turned to stone. Which is weird because only humans and birds. All other animals and mammals and insects and creatures and germs, all of them were perfectly fine. Only birds and humans were turned to stone. So keep that in mind. And as this is going on, we get to see time passes as Taiju is still in the stone talking to himself, which means that they're not dead when they get turned to stone, but they are petrified and can't move. And a good couple 100,000 years passes, and Taiju somehow breaks out the stone. And he's like, I broke out. Yay, I'm finally free. And he starts going around looking for other people, and he sees other statues but broken and battered, and he starts to pray for them and stuff like that, until he bumps into one statue that he even says, I can never forget you. And it's Yuzuraya. It's her statue. And her statue is like insealed in a tree. It's like she's being protected by this tree. And he states, I don't know if you can hear me or not, but I'm going to confess to you the words that I couldn't confess to you before. And he starts to cry when he says this, and he says, I love you. And then he starts to go up to her, and he's like, I'm going to set you free. I'm not sure how, I'm not sure when. I'm not sure if I can figure this out on my own, but I'm going to find a way to get you free. And then he ends up touching the tree, and he ends up, saying, don't worry, I got you. And this is when he noticed something weird about the tree. The tree had a carving into it that stated, hey, big oaf. If you see this message, follow the river downwards. Now, if you remember, Senku was the only one that gave him that nickname, Big Oaf. Senku and Yuzuraya. But we know it's Yuzuraya if we see her in front of us. She's a statue right now. So, when Taiju followed the water river downwards, we bump into Senku, we found out Senku is actually alive as well, and 6 months ago, he actually turned back into a regular human from his stone purification. And that is October 5th, year 5000 and something. And Taiju was like, oh wow, that's incredible that you broke out so early. But how do you know the the date? And he's like, well, when I got turned to stone, I had no choice but to count. That was the only salvation for me, so I wouldn't lose my mind. I kind of missed a couple of numbers and steps here and there thanks to me almost losing my mind, but I was able to basically calculate time and distance by counting, and I was able to figure out the time zone that we're in and what time it is and the year. And Taiju was very impressed, and this shows how smart Senku is. Instead of going crazy and just blacking out, he was able to be saved by doing something that basic humans can do. Count. And he just counted. And he was able to know the time and date and stuff. And we see that he has spears, he made a tree house, he has food and stuff like that he gathered from vegetables and trees. So, Senku, he's been out for a while, which is pretty interesting. But, excuse me if you hear my phone in the back. But, as this conversation starts, we see the interaction between Taiju and Senku and how, even though Senku calls Taiju Big Oaf, he does respect him and see him as a good quality person, and they do have a good friendship. And that's one of the things I love about Dr. Stone is the science and humor that they bring to this. At the same time, we get to see like the relationship between them bloom. Again, this is more of a slice of life / fictional story, so if you're expecting something battle heavy like Naruto, Bleach, My Hero, whatever, it's not that type of anime. But as the story progresses, Senku is just doing the doctor work and the brain work, and he has Taiju doing all the physical labor. So Taiju's job is to go out, hunt, get flowers, plants and stuff like that, where Senku is gathering all these materials in his lab that we get to see later on, and he's trying to figure out an antidote. And in the cave that Taiju broke out, there's something like liquid leaking down from the tower, or the cave I should say, and we find out that it's nutric acid, which is being produced from the bats that are hanging up there. And this acid, he's trying to figure out if he can use this to break the stone statues curse to get everyone unpetrified. And after, I believe it was like 6 months or a year of them using this, combined with some grapes and some other stuff, they were actually able to succeed, and they were actually able to break a stone bird that was petrified out of his stone, and they were able to free him, and he's flying around. And this reminds Taiju of a flashback that he got when him and Yuzuraya, they both went to a red store, but since it was too early, it was still closed, and they both had a petrified bird in their hands, which they both found, which was interesting because Taiju stated that before society got cursed by this stone curse, that there was a couple of weeks ahead of time when birds was dropping out of the sky and turning into stones. So that's very interesting that it happens with birds first, then all of humanity second. So just keep that in mind. But as this progressed and they found out, they were extremely happy. We get some funny moments here and there. And they finally made a liquid that can, break the stone out. And that was basically the first episode. Now again, going back to the stone thing with the birds, we're not sure if this is a curse or a virus weapon that maybe another nation made and they spread it out, or this can be just some weird phenomenon. We don't know, but it is interesting to know that it started with the birds first, and now humans, but only birds and humans are affected, nothing else. So that's very interesting, and it makes me believe that maybe this is a weapon by science. Since Senku did say that science can basically break down and explain everything, because science's job is to basically find out the tricks of things and break them down. That's how he explains it, at least, which he has a very awkward way to explain it, but it's very unique at the same time. But again, this is my first impression, and I love Dr. Stone. I'll also review the manga on the channel, but this was the first episode, and art and animation again in the opening was just beautiful. I'm watching this and I'm like, why can't My Hero, I'm sorry, why can't Black Clover have this type of art and animation? Like right now, the art and animation is okay. It's not terrible, but it's not at that peak level like My Hero or what's another good anime? Overlord or One Punch Man. You know, it's not up there with those animes that are considered the GOAT. Or One Piece and Attack on Titan. You know, it's not up there in art and animation. And as good as the story and characters that we have, Studio Period, in my opinion, they're just failing the Black Clover franchise. Their anime adaptation is just horrible. Even though they did a couple of screw up with Bleach and Naruto, I mean, it was still a pretty good series and art and animation wise, but when it comes to Black Clover, it's just like, it feels like a drag. Certain fights, and especially their fillers, are just a drag. Then when you see this, Dr. Stone, I'm not sure what studio is doing it, but you see their art and animation and their openings, and it's like, because the only thing good about Black Clover is the music. The music, which is the OST and the anime opening and endings, are good. But other than that, art and animation is like, eh. The Dr. Stone, going back to it, has beautiful artwork and animation. Fluidity is perfect. We got 3 good main casts. We got Yuzuraya, Taiju, and Senku. And Senku, he's like the main head cast member, main MC. The other 2 are like side characters, but all 3 of them technically are the main characters of the story. It's gonna be all around them. But Senku is the most important one because he's the man of science, and him and Taiju wants to actually save the world, which was stated. So they're going to use this nectar to unpetrify everyone. And it's also stated that the world's strongest high schooler, Shishio Sugasa, they found his statue earlier, Taiju, so that was stated, so keep that person in mind. But yeah, this was a really first great episode, great stuff. I love the artwork and animation, but that's my review on it, guys. Tell me down below what you like and didn't like about it. How do you feel about Dr. Stone, and are you interested in this type of anime that's more, I guess you could say, science / sci-fi based, or slice of life based, really? But that's what I have for you. Tell me the thoughts and opinions, and peace out and have a good one.